Hello. So Motherland is about the experience of Emily Bernard adopting her two daughters, the process before, during, after, and then just like all the emotions she was feeling and just like a bunch of situations that were going on throughout the time. So I know in like a previous chapter, I don't remember the name of what chapter it was, but I know she talks about how like rough the process was to adopting her daughters and how like it was a really hard time for her, and she never really went into detail until this chapter on Motherland. So, which is nice too, because it's kind of like she kind of does that where like in chapters she'll like kind of tell us something and she kind of leaves us hanging, and then eventually it has its own chapter where she talks about it. So yeah, so she talks about the process of adopting her daughters and just like how they chose her their names, and then another little thing about it. So I never realized that her daughter's name was Julia. So I kept pronouncing it Gula, but obviously that was so wrong and I should have looked into it more, but I'm embarrassed. But yeah, so she talks about how they got their names and just how like she talks about how like she knew at that moment that when they were gonna adopt, just like everything was gonna change. And then they talk about this lady named Helen, the one that originally was supposed to help them adopt the girls, and I'm kind of confused on the situation with Helen. I don't know if I just read through it too fast or I just didn't grab it correctly, but just the part where Helen kind of already sounded sketchy when she was talking about how like she doesn't really respond fast, like she didn't really explain anything about going to Ethiopia, like she just wasn't being very, like she wasn't communicating with them. So that's when I thought it was kind of sketchy. And then it just goes into talking about how like I guess the agency doesn't want to work with her, or like she ends up getting fired. So I'm just confused, as if like I'm confused because I'm not understanding if Helen is bad or not, or if she had good intentions. That's where I'm kind of confused, or if the agency just didn't like her. So I need clarification on that. But yeah, that was weird. And then how she was kind of like lying, Emily Bernard, like I forgot, she told the agency that she had to work with Helen, but then she told Helen that she wasn't working with the agency anymore. And then also later on in the chapter, Helen tells her something and she's like, you can't tell Jonah or I forgot what his name was, but someone from the agency. And Emily Bernard was like, yeah, like I'm not going to tell them. And then the next line, it's like, I told them the next morning kind of thing. But yeah, that. And then I mean, yeah, they just talk about the process. Like she talks about how Helen told them that they didn't know the actual birth date of the girls, so just to pick a date from in January. But then when she met up with the cousin, she talked about like the day they were born, so she made sure to like write that down so she would remember and make sure she wasn't like dreaming about it kind of thing. And then she talks about the experience of like where they stopped and then they had to walk to go meet the girls, meet the grandma, another cousin. There was this other cousin that was talking about how they were going to be family, but like goodbye kind of thing. And I mean, yeah, they just talk about how difficult it was, like how she felt and how she asked the lady like, it's possible that we aren't gonna have the girls, right? And the lady was like, yes, kind of thing. Sorry, I'm trying to do this fast. I talk too long. And then yeah, the process of just like they got their names wrong and they were trying to change them and they were still in Ethiopia, like they couldn't even leave to the States yet. And it was just like they were there, but they didn't even know if they were going to keep the girls. And then they have experiences of like just like having lunches with certain people there, and just like, I mean, they just talk about everything. And then yeah, I mean, they finally get to keep the girls and everything's okay. And then I mean, they bring up Helen again at the end, talking about how like they have like this anger towards her, but then I don't think Emily Bernard really has much anger towards her as much as her husband does, kind of thing. But yeah, I really liked the chapter. There was a lot of detail in this one, like important detail that it's kind of like you need to talk about, but then also like detail where it's like she's just really trying to describe her experience throughout this process. So just like little details of her having lunch, dinner, just like stuff like that that she's letting us know about. But yeah, it was really nice.